What do you picture when you hear Dracula? Probably a pale guy lounging in his gothic castle, rocking a cape, allergic to sunlight, and oh yeah, a vampire who makes you seriously reconsider nighttime walks. Now the classic perception of the fictional Dracula is scary enough, but what if I told you the guy who Dracula was inspired from was way more nightmare-fueling than him? Of course, I'm talking about Vlad the Third. Forget vampires with their cute little fangs. Vlad preferred full-on giant stakes to impale people on. But was he just a bloodthirsty psycho or a misunderstood ruler trying to keep his kingdom together? Well, to be honest, a little bit of both. When history and fiction get mixed, people tend to go full-on fictional on history, which makes it somewhat difficult to untangle history from fiction. But enough of this talk. Back to our boy Vlad Dracula. Now, Vlad's story is set in the 15th century in the Middle East of Europe, the Balkans. It's been about a century since the Ottomans crashed the Balkan party. Now, the Ottomans were basically the "sorry, I'm taking your land" kind of neighbor. The infamous Battle of Kosovo in 1389 paved the way for the Ottomans to vassalize Serbia. Multiple crusading armies from across Europe had attempted to push back Ottoman expansion, but none was successful. Now, in the midst of this chaos stood the Principality of Wallachia, ruled by Vlad II, the father of our protagonist. Now, Vlad II had to play the balancing game. On one side of his little country was the expansionist Ottoman Empire, and on the other, the opportunistic Hungarians. One day, Sultan Murad II summoned Vlad to his court. Being the family man he was, Vlad brought along his two sons, the other Vlad and Rado. Now, if you are not well versed in medieval politics, prepare for a shock, because the Sultan ended up capturing Vlad and his sons. Talk about a fun checkmark on the Sultan's to-do list. After a year, Vlad was released, but his sons remained hostages. This is where our future Vlad's story really kicks off. You might think the Ottomans had the upper hand with their hostage game, but it turns out this was just the beginning of a wild ride. You see, our young Vlad wasn't about to just sit around the Ottoman court. He was busy learning the ropes of warfare, diplomacy, and the art of survival in a ruthless political landscape. He became a master strategist, picking up valuable lessons that would shape him into the formidable ruler he was destined to be. Eventually, the young Vlad and his brother were released, but instead of a welcome home, they got a "who the hell are you?" While the young Vlad and his brother were in Ottoman court, a Hungarian nobleman by the name of John Hunyadi decided it was time for Vlad II to pack his bags and leave Wallachia. You see, Vlad II was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order that fought against the Ottoman Empire. That's where he and his family got the nickname Dracula, by the way. The problem, however, started when Hunyadi, a key figure in Hungary, believed Vlad was getting a little too cozy with the Ottomans. In Hunyadi's eyes, Vlad should have shown zero sympathy to the empire, so when Vlad didn't toe the anti-Ottoman line, Hunyadi got seriously ticked off. Vlad II was murdered in the marshes of his own country, which turned Wallachia into a scene of chaos. The boyars, who were basically the Wallachian nobility, had become super powerful, but after some boring 15th century back and forth, our young Vlad, now known as Vlad III, eventually claimed his father's throne, and became the ruler of Wallachia in 1456. And oh boy, he had a long to-do list. I mean, what could that be? Oh yeah, bunch of impaling. Now, Vlad wasn't exactly on anyone's Christmas card list. Between the Hungarians and the Ottomans, no one was thrilled about an independent Wallachia. And just like his dad, Vlad was caught between two very angry neighbors. But before poking those beasts, Vlad had some local housekeeping to do, starting with, of course, a bit of impaling. Vlad turned punishment into political theater. Take the infamous 1456 dinner party. He invited the same boyars who helped bring about his father's death for a little feast. Everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Mid-banquet, Vlad had the whole lot impaled. Talk about a dinner party gone south. But that was just Act 1. A few years later, around 1460, Vlad turned his attention to the Saxon merchants in Transylvania, who were backing a rival claimant, Dan III, with some help from the Hungarian nobles. Vlad saw this as a direct threat to his rule, so naturally he defeated Dan, forced him to dig his own grave, and then dealt with the merchants in the only way he knew. Yep, more impaling. Problem solved in Vlad style. Now, this little impaling spree pretty much cemented Vlad's reputation as the weirdest guy on the block. I mean, let's be real, nobody's thrilled when there's a dude down the street with a habit of impaling anyone who crosses him. Vlad's brand of medieval justice wasn't exactly subtle. and word spread fast. However, Vlad's terrifying reputation didn't exactly faze Mehmed II. I mean, when you've conquered Constantinople and command an army of 150,000 men, you're not losing sleep over some guy with a thing for impaling people. Vlad might have been the stuff of local nightmares, but Mehmed, he was playing the empire game on a whole different level. Now, Vlad may have spent some time hanging out in the Ottoman Empire, but he didn't exactly send Mehmed II a friendship bracelet when he left. You see, while Vlad was learning the ropes of politics and warfare in Ottoman captivity, Mehmed II was busy becoming one of the most powerful sultans in history. The two knew each other pretty well from their time together, which kinda makes what happens next the ultimate medieval frenemies showdown. Fast forward to when Vlad's grip on Wallachia had tightened, and Mehmed's thinking it's time for Wallachia to play nice with the Ottomans. Vlad, on the other hand, had different plans. He'd already dealt with rival claimants, power-hungry boyars, and Saxon merchants causing trouble. What's one more angry empire, right? So in classic Vlad style, he sends the ultimate good message to Mehmed by impaling a bunch of Ottoman envoys. Yes, you heard that right. When the Ottomans showed up demanding tribute, Vlad didn't just say no, he impaled the messengers. Now this is where things really hit the fan. After thumbing his nose at Mehmed, Vlad crossed the Danube and launched an attack on the Ottoman-controlled lands in Bulgaria. The Sultan, not amused, ordered the Bey of Nicopolis to capture him. But Vlad, being the sneaky guy he was, found out and flipped the script, hunting the hunter. After killing the Ottoman official, Vlad transformed into the ultimate nightmare, terrorizing villages like a real-life vampire. Forget fangs, he came armed with sharpened stakes. In a letter dated February 11, 1462, Vlad wrote to the new Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus, boasting that he had personally ordered the death of more than 23,000 Turks and Bulgarians during his campaign. He wasn't just bragging though, he was also asking for military backup. Vlad claimed he had broken the peace with the Sultan for the honor of the King of Hungary and for the preservation of Christianity and the strengthening of the Catholic faith. But perhaps you guessed by now that Vlad was on his own in this one, as he was throughout his whole life. Eventually, Mehmed II officially had enough of Vlad's antics. He launched an invasion into Wallachia with a massive army, ready to crush Vlad once and for all. But Vlad wasn't going down without a fight. Rather than face Mehmed's army head-on, Vlad decided to go guerrilla warfare on them. His night attacks became the stuff of legend, where Vlad and his forces would swoop in under the cover of darkness, causing chaos and panic among the Ottoman troops. But what really freaked out the Ottoman forces was Vlad's most notorious tactic, the infamous Forest of the Impaled. As Mehmed's army advanced into Wallachia, they were greeted by a horrifying sight. Thousands of Ottoman prisoners impaled on stakes, lining the road for miles. It was like a medieval horror show, designed to mess with the minds of the advancing soldiers. And guess what? It worked. Mehmed and his troops were so disturbed by the scene that they decided to pull back, at least for a little while. Vlad had brought himself some time, but his victory was short-lived. As you might imagine, impaling pretty much everyone who disagreed with you wasn't exactly a long-term strategy for success. By the late 1460s, Vlad had managed to alienate just about everyone. Boyars, Saxon merchants, neighboring rulers, and even some of his own people. His brutal methods may have kept Wallachia independent for a while, but the cost was high. Eventually, Vlad's enemies caught up with him, and he was captured and imprisoned by none other than the Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus. Here's where things get a little murky. Vlad spent around a decade in captivity, but the thing is, nobody's really sure what he was up to during that time. Was he plotting his revenge? Who knows, but what we do know is that in 1476, Vlad was given one last shot at reclaiming the Wallachian throne. Unfortunately, this comeback tour didn't last long. He was killed in battle later that year, and his head was sent to Mehmed II as a trophy. Vlad III, better known as Vlad the Impaler, may have met a bloody end, but his legend only grew from there. Over time, stories of his cruelty spread throughout Europe, eventually inspiring Bram Stoker's fictional vampire, Count Dracula. But while the vampire version is terrified of garlic and sunlight, the real Vlad was much scarier. He didn't just suck your blood, he'd impale you, and then throw a dinner party while you were still hanging there. So was Vlad the Impaler a bloodthirsty tyrant or a misunderstood ruler who did whatever it took to protect his kingdom? Probably a bit of both. But one thing's for sure, When it comes to nightmare fuel, the real Vlad definitely beats the vampire myth. If you enjoyed this video on Vlad, who's gone by many names but none as chilling as the Impaler, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.